Tonight, they've lived with grief and suspicion since the murder of their daughter, Jean-Benet. And now, John and Patsy Ramsey join us. Their first live TV interview ever, and they'll take your calls next on Larry King Live. Good evening. It's a great pleasure to welcome the Ramseys to this edition of Larry King Live. It is a live appearance. Their book is The Death of Innocence, just published. They are the co-authors. They will also be with us tomorrow night. There's the cover of the book. This will be a two-night appearance, both evenings live. We'll be including your phone calls both night. And Greta Van Susteren of CNN's Burden of Proof will join us as well tomorrow night. We're going to get the whole story, as much as we can cover in 2 nights of programming. We hope to cover as much of it as we can. First on something directly current, and then we'll get into a little history. You had said recently in an interview that you were willing to take a lie detector test, and apparently the Boulder police are now saying, let's set it up. Will you do it?
We were asked, had we been asked to take a lie detector test? We said no. We were asked, would we? We said certainly we would. We would expect it to be fair, and we would expect the results to be public.
And then you would take, well, by fair, what's the determination of that, Patsy?
Well, I think it has to be someone of
national repute, FBI man,
independent, you know, a professional polygrapher.
You know, we've been told that this is a dangerous thing to take a lie detector test because they're subjective science. They're not allowed in court as evidence.
Agree.
In Colorado, even if both sides agree, they're not allowed in court.
In the right hands, though. That's
in the right, we have nothing to hide, and if they work, and if it will advance the cause of finding the killer of our daughter, we'll do it. Simple.
Before we get to the story, to be a suspect and live with the death of a child as a suspect as well, how do you get through that?
Well, first of all, we have never been deemed suspects.
Yeah, but the public regards you.
We've been said to be under the umbrella of suspicion, whatever that means.
What's that like?
Well, it's kind of in no man's land, you know.
Is it no win?
Well, we lost our daughter. That's the worst possible thing that could have happened to us. Anything that has happened in the aftermath pales by comparison.
Let's go back to that night. It's December 26th, the day after Christmas, right? That's when this occurred.
Mm-hmm.
You spent part of Christmas Day at your friend's house. Give us a little history. You were in what business in Boulder?
We were in the computer distribution business. We sold computer products to resellers who then sold them to users.
Very successful, right?
It was reasonably successful.
2 children?
Yeah.
2 children.
You had lost a daughter previously in a previous marriage, right?
My oldest daughter, Beth, was killed in an automobile accident in Chicago in 1992.
You've lost 2 daughters.
Lost 2 daughters, my oldest and my youngest.
What happened that day?
December 26th.
6th.
We were planning to leave for Charlevoix, which is, we have a summer cottage up there. We did have. We were going to rendezvous with our older kids for a first ever family Christmas all together in Michigan. We were to leave early that morning, fly to Michigan.
Morning after Christmas.
Morning after.
What happened that night? What's the first thing you remember, Patsy?
The first thing I remember is waking up, getting dressed hurriedly, going downstairs, and putting a few things together to pack to take on the plane.
It's about what time?
It's early morning, before daylight.
You're up?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens?
Then I go down the spiral staircase, and there on one of the runs of the stair is the 3-page ransom note.
And no one has entered the house, the door isn't open, you read the note.
I don't know that.
What did you do? Oh, you...
Well, I hurriedly read it, you know, and didn't take long to understand what was happening, and I ran back upstairs and pushed open her bedroom door, and she was gone.
Did you think you knew it was her by the note, right?
Well, it said your daughter.
Yeah. You were not concerned about Burke? Did you check Burke?
Yes.
We checked it fairly quickly.
Yes.
You brought the note to John?
I don't remember. I tell you, you just, you know, that
You
morning
remember how you got the
is so
note?
chaotic.
You don't?
I don't remember exactly, but
Well, it was.
I started screaming, there's a note, you know.
And you look in John Benet's room, she's not there. And what's the first thing you do?
Larry, we don't remember. This was 3 years ago. We've been through this 100
You wrote
times.
a book about it, so, I mean, you must have said...
We outlined it in the book.
Basically.
I felt like I'd been kicked by a horse. The most horrible feeling. If you ever had that pang of missing your child in a shopping center just for a moment, that pain hit me squarely between the eyes, and it never left. It was a horrible feeling.
You don't know what to do first. You don't know what to do. You're just panicking.
Call the police right away?
We did.
Call the police right
911 or...
911.
Right? And what do they do?
A uniformed police officer arrived relatively quickly, and I handed him the note. I said, my daughter's been taken. He said, gee, you don't think she just ran away? And I said, for heaven's sake, she's 6 years old. No, she didn't just run away.
No sign of foul play at this point?
We weren't looking. We were concerned.
I mean, there was no foul play in her room?
We
No.
didn't
Just
go
she
back
wasn't in
into
bed.
her room.
Right.
Right. She was not in.
So what did the officer do?
Asked us to go into one room, put us in one room.
And he searched the house?
I don't know.
I don't know what he did.
Don't know what he did.
Well, this is hard. When was the first time you saw your daughter? After all of this, you got the note. How long after this did you see John Benet?
I mean, when did I find her?
Yeah.
Well, I found her later that morning.
Hours?
Hours.
What during those hours? You thinking she's been kidnapped?
Oh, absolutely. We thought we were dealing with a kidnapping.
Fearing the worst?
Police arrived.
Absolutely. You don't know whether you're going to see your daughter in an hour, in a day, in a year, in 10 years, or never. It's a horrible feeling.
Police combed the house?
They were everywhere.
Apparently not well, but they
I mean,
did.
they look down the basement, look everywhere there is you're supposed to look. Did they put that yellow thing they put around the house with the crime scene?
No.
Never did.
No.
What are you going through at this point?
Agony.
Pure agony.
Sheer, horrified
agony.
terror.
Your daughter is in the hands of a monster. You don't know where. You don't know if she's cold, if she's... You just don't know. It's a horrible feeling for a
Did you
parent.
ever fear kidnapping, being a fairly well-off person in a community? No?
It didn't occur to us.
Didn't have bodyguards or...
No. We thought we lived in a safe community. It was peaceful. We thought it was crime-free. Our guard went down. We were complacent.
We'll be right back with the Ramseys. The book is just out, The Death of Innocence. We'll be taking your calls. This is Larry King Live, and they're with us for 2 nights. Don't go away. They've decided to tell their story. This is a live appearance for the Ramseys. Okay, police are there. Friends come over. What happened to Burke? Does he stay asleep, or do you wake him up and send it? What happens to Burke?
Burke was in bed. We got him up. Don't remember what time, but we had him go to a friend's house. I told him his sister was missing.
Told him the truth.
Told him the truth. We didn't try to make it as easy on as we could, but he cried immediately, so he knew something seriously was wrong. And he went to a friend's house.
And what are you doing, Patsy? You waiting for a phone call from the kidnapper? Is that what you...
Right, yes. By that time, Linda Arndt had arrived, Detective Linda Arndt, and she was introduced to me by the first officer, French, who was there. And he said, Mrs. Ramsey, if my child were missing, I would want Detective Arndt looking for her.
So she came over.
Yes.
Did the FBI get called in?
We were told the FBI was called. We kept asking, where are they? Why aren't they here? They were told, well, they're on their way. It takes a couple hours. And they, of course, they never came.
Now, the toughest part of all, John, how do you find your daughter?
I found her after Linda Arndt asked us to go through the house, look for anything out of ordinary, out of place. And I found her in the basement.
Where?
She was in a room that probably originally was a coal cellar. It was a 4 concrete walled room. I knew instantly when I opened the door that I'd found her.
Did you know she was dead?
No, I didn't. I had this rush of just, thank God I found her. Her hands were tied. She had tape over her mouth. I removed the tape immediately. I could feel that her skin was cool. And I feared the worst, but I still held out hope that she would be okay.
And with the police officer in the house at that time, why didn't you just, you picked the child up, right?
Yes.
Why didn't you call a police officer to come right over and
This is my
take care of
daughter.
her? I mean,
This is my child. I loved her.
Instinctive reaction.
Where were you, Patsy?
I was upstairs with
You
friends.
told Patsy?
I don't remember the sequence. I picked John Benet up. I carried her upstairs.
The police officer didn't complain about that?
No.
No, because usually...
It all happened so
Listen,
fast.
I found my daughter. I wasn't going to step back
I'm
and
the
say,
father.
oops, I'm not going to touch this. This is a crime scene. I'd found my precious daughter. And I was, thank God I'd found her.
Did you try anything to revive her?
I took the tape off her mouth. I tried to untie her arms. They were very tightly bound. I couldn't get the knot undone. And then I picked her up and I just screamed. The kind of scream you scream in a dream when you're trying to speak, but you can't. It's just a scream.
Did you see her too?
I heard him scream.
You never saw her?
Yes, I did then see her. My friends were, I was in the TV room and I said, what is it, what is it? And they kept, holding me, wait, I don't know what it is. One of our friends ran into the room and said, we need an ambulance, tried to dial 911, and I kept screaming, what is it, what is it? And, then in just a couple minutes, then I walked into the living room.
What did the police say? Did they say anything? Did they?
Well, Linda Arndt was the only police person that was there that I recall.
They all had left. The others had left.
Well, I don't know. There were a lot of people there.
It was a blur to
throughout
you.
the morning.
Yeah,
It was a blur. We had victims advocates there. We had uniformed police. We had detectives. People were in the kitchen making sandwiches. I mean, it was
There were people
chaos.
fingerprinting. There was fingerprint dust
The
everywhere.
evidence crew was there.
A little zoo-like.
It was a
Nightmare.
little zoo-like. And when I brought John Benet up, Linda Arndt knelt over her and I guess felt for her pulse and looked at me and said, she's dead.
Did you ever think, because what can you think at a time like this, why would someone send a ransom note, kidnap someone, and then kill them and leave them in the same house?
Well,
if the purpose is to get money.
Larry, this person is a madman. It's a monster. They don't think logically.
Pedophile?
We think it was a
believe so.
pedophile. We think it was a male. There's several key pieces of evidence that we think will lead us to the killer. Male, pedophile. We think a stun gun was involved, so this person either had a stun gun or had access to one. The number 118 had significance to this person. 118,000 was the amount of the ransom note. That was picked for a purpose. We don't know what the purpose is. SBTC meant something to this killer. That was how the ransom note was signed. And this person was in Boulder, Colorado on December 25th. We're not looking for a needle in a haystack.
No. If it was a pedophile, was your daughter sexually abused?
I don't believe there's
We
conclusive
don't
evidence
know.
of that.
We don't know.
Have you talked to the medical? Did they send you the autopsy
No.
reports?
No. The police have not talked to us at all. We don't know what's been done. We
Well,
don't
they've
know who's
questioned
been
you, right?
Oh, we've questioned us
But
extensively.
they haven't told you anything about, you have
No.
not seen a death certificate?
No.
No.
You don't know how your daughter died.
Well,
We
from
do.
what we-
She was strangled.
That's the cause of death.
That's the cause of death.
But you don't know if any sexual activity took place.
It's not clear to me that there was. We don't know. It's one of those questions you don't want to know the answer to, frankly.
In a minute, we'll talk about why it turns on them. The book is The Death of Innocence. Our guests are the Ramseys. Don't go away. We're back with the Ramseys. You almost immediately became suspects. Do you know why? Or the public perception of suspects?
Well,
was it because of the bathing, of the course of the... that she
no,
was in
I think the
pageant?
tragedy...
Way before that.
The tragedy of this investigation was it ended on December 26th. Linda Arndt, the lead detective that was there, went on national television a few months ago and said, I knew the father did it because I saw it in his eyes on the 26th. I didn't act right. I was too calm,
That was immediate.
cordial.
How did you react when she said that?
It was a bit incredulous, but it also illustrated the bias we were dealing with from the very beginning.
Right. But do you think that had something to do with the fact that your daughter entered pageants?
I think the decision was made at that time.
Picture.
At that time, Detective Arndt didn't know Jean Bonnet. She didn't know.
When did the public first see pictures of Jean Bonnet in her outfit?
I think that wasn't until after the first of the year.
A few days. That's a week later.
I really don't know
Probably.
exactly.
But don't you think, John, that caused a stir in people?
I think
most people say, I wouldn't have my child do that, even though many do.
Many do, and it was a wonderful thing that Patsy and John Bonet enjoyed doing together. It was certainly misinterpreted, I think, and it's one of those things that the eyes of the beholder.
But it led to those stories, jealousy,
but
jealousy.
that was several days afterwards. I mean, we know that Linda Arndt made up her mind, and the rest of the Boulder Police Department, we believe, made up their minds the 26th of December.
Oh, that was us.
You know, that it was the parents.
Is that because they found no entrance into the house?
We don't know why.
Well, we know, Larry, that a window was open. Under that window was a suitcase, as if a step to get up through it. We learned later that they found a door open, which I didn't know about until almost a year later. That house was not difficult to get in.
The police that were there the morning of the 26th, taking evidence, have a lot of tangible evidence. They did a good job at collecting evidence. We have fibers, we have DNA, we have a lot of evidence. The problem was that then they did not take the evidence to where it would lead.
Why did they think it was you?
Because the police always go after the parents. And we understood that after...
The death of a child?
Absolutely, 100%
With a
of
ransom
the time.
note? You go, really?
Absolutely.
Well, I think, you know, in every case, parents are always suspected initially. And at first we were aghast at that, but then we understood that we needed to be investigated.
The police
but they stopped there. They didn't go on.
The police say that you would only... You put guidelines up to the interviews. You'd only be interviewed together. Why?
I don't remember.
Is that not true?
Guidelines.
I don't remember.
You didn't give them any guidelines?
The only guideline I remember, the only request that we made, and this was after a huge gap of mistrust developed. The police withheld John Bonet's body for burial to try to force us to submit to their terms.
Which were?
That the three of us be interrogated in the police station before we buried our daughter. And we were horribly offended at that. And this huge gap of mistrust developed.
Let me tell you what develops in this as a father and what other people say, and the reason that I think that you're under this cloud. Most people would say, if I didn't do it and my daughter was killed, I'm talking as a father, and I don't like to bring myself into it. One, I'll answer any question. I'll take any test. I'll meet with you. I'll be there first thing in the morning. Catch the killer. I'd go nuts. I'd cooperate in every way. Fast. I'd go out with the cops. I'd give them my fingers. I'd give them my five.
We did that, Larry.
We did do that.
We met with them on the 26th.
Fully in every way.
We met with them on the 27th. We gave hair, blood, fiber samples on the 28th. We left
they say
we stayed in Boulder, Colorado. We stayed there for testing for, you know, until
Why did they say you were uncooperative? Or some of them?
I don't know. This is it's a what we need to do is get down to the objective here. The objective is to find the killer. I can say a lot of things about what the police didn't do, and they can say a lot of things about what we didn't do, but let's put that aside. Let's put politics aside. Let's put egos aside. There is a dangerous killer loose, we believe. This killer, if he's still alive, will kill again. It's time to get on with that.
You're worried for your other boy?
Yes, I'm worried.
Worried for neighbors?
I'm worried for this entire country. There is a killer walking around out there someplace. Lou Smith tells us that we
That's
can...
a detective, right?
Detective
Lou Smith is the only homicide investigator that's ever looked at this case.
And he says definitively that there is enough evidence to find this man, but the public needs to know it. It's been...
Why would the police not want to solve that?
Why wouldn't they?
Oh, I think the police are passionate.
That it's you?
They're passionate that it was one of us.
We'll be right back with more of the Ramseys. We'll go to your phone calls in a little while as well. This is your program, too. Don't go away. We're back. By the way, Alex Hunter, the DA in the question, said this morning on the Today Show that he had a 4-minute conversation with you. When was that?
I believe that was his first press conference.
You were there, or he spoke to you before it?
I was not at the press conference. I was in a conference room listening to the press conference and was so moved by his determination to find the killer of my daughter. I asked my lawyer, who was there with me, I said, can we get him on the telephone? And he looked at me and said, what do you want to say to him? And I said, I want to speak with that man. Please get him on the telephone. And I said, thank you, thank you. As a mother of a murdered child, thank you for your willingness. I mean, he looked at that camera and said, we will find you. We will find you.
You like him? I
like the fact that he's determined to find out who did this, and he wasn't going to rubber stamp the police decision, you know, that it was John and was me.
That was another thing that hurt you, John. I mean, press-wise, lawyers, PR people. Why? Why'd you need a lawyer?
We didn't bring in lawyers. A good friend of mine who was at our home where we were staying, delivering food, sensed that something was wrong and needed to be done. He took me aside and said, John, would you trust me to do some things here that I think are necessary? I said, yes, I would. He requested that we have counsel. And at the time, we said, what do we need lawyers for? He said, well, I think it's prudent. So what do we need 2 lawyers for heaven's sakes? And he said, well, that's the way the system works is each person has to be represented by their own attorney. And what Mike saw became painfully and publicly clear when Linda Arndt told us
that they were out to
on
get
national TV, they're out to get us.
Okay. But there are some who might have said, I don't need any lawyers. I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
I just didn't do it.
That's what we said.
I don't need lawyers. I don't need PR. I don't need nothing.
Well,
I didn't do it.
Let me clarify one other thing. We didn't have a PR.
No, you never did. Oh,
no.
That was
a myth.
Our attorneys hired a media information person. They were getting 300 phone calls a day into their office. They couldn't cope with it. They hired someone that could be a focal point for all these calls from media. That got translated by the media as a public relations spin doctor.
You did that one interview with CNN and then stopped doing it. Was that a mistake? Should you have done more? Or was it a mistake to do the CNN one?
You know, hindsight's 20/20.
What is your hindsight?
You know, my hindsight is I never should have moved to Boulder, Colorado. I mean, if you're going to go back, you know. But you can't do that. You have to start with what we have now. We have to move ahead. We have to try to find this killer and get him off the street.
How'd you react, John, when people said you weren't mad enough? You didn't appear angry, hurt, really whacked. I mean, you lost this beautiful little girl. You'd lost a daughter before in your life. I mean, we all look at it from our own perspective. You're a different personality. Well, I would be berserk.
Larry, inside I was berserk. I was crushed. I didn't want to live. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It's the most horrible feeling. I've lost 2 daughters, and for people to tell me he didn't act right, I take great offense to. I think I could write the book on how you should act. With my first daughter, it was an accident. They were on their way to a museum at noon on Friday, and they got hit by a truck. Both her and her special friend were killed. John Bonet was taken intentionally by another human being. That is far worse to deal with.
Does your gut tell you it's someone who knew her?
I don't really think
they... have a gut on something like this? Why you, why her?
I don't know.
We told the police when they first asked us, who you have any ideas? We said, look, we don't know anybody this evil. This was an evil, evil person that did this. Did we know them? I can't imagine that we did.
Back with more of the Ramseys. We'll include your phone calls. They're with us again tomorrow night, too. This is Larry King Live, and the book is The Death of Innocence. Don't go away. Take one of these. We're back. We're going to go to your phone call. Stewart, Virginia, for the Ramseys. Hello.
Yes, I was wondering, do you think that someone may read your book and come forward with valuable information? And has anyone already contacted you that has read your book?
That is precisely our hope. We believe that if the public, this case is going to be solved through the help of the public. That was one of the primary reasons we wrote the book. And yes, we have received, we've received probably about 30 emails and letters a day. Many of those are just expressing concern and sympathy, but a few of them have been interesting leads, and that's how this case can be solved.
And you must get some anger too, right?
Yes, we do.
I mean, you must get...
About 1 out of 10 is a
That's all?
is a hate message. Yeah.
Nashville, hello.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. John and Patsy, I would like to know what your feeling is about the position that the governor of Colorado took as a public statement in positioning you of being guilty, and why did you hide behind your attorneys, and why did you hire a public relations firm to represent you?
Well, we asked the last two already, and they said the attorneys hired the PR firm to handle the calls, right? And
yeah, now the governor certainly has accused us of continuing to hide behind our attorneys and our PR firm, and I wish that he would tell me who this PR firm is, because I've not gotten a bill, and it must be getting huge by now.
what did you make of it when he did that? He was on this program the night after the press conference. What did you make of it when you saw it? Couldn't believe it.
I could not believe someone in a position of authority as he is would say such a thing as that. After a grand jury in his state spent 13 months of time and effort and hard work, and then he disregarded it.
Well, he said you were not cooperative.
Well, I don't know how you could say that. I wrote a letter over 2 years ago to Alex Hunter, and I said, you need to understand, Mr. Hunter, we have no confidence or trust in the Boulder police, but we will meet with your investigators anywhere, anytime, any place for as long as you would like. I wrote that was a personal letter I wrote to Alex Hunter over 2 years ago. And that was our position. No one wants to find this killer more than I do.
So what do you think the governor was political here?
I think the governor was purely political. It's a terrible thing that he has chosen to advance his political career on our family tragedy. I have no other explanation for it.
All right, if he's doing that, he must think that most of the people in Colorado agree with him.
Certainly more than voted for him in the
50%.
election, perhaps. I don't know.
But he's only heard one side of the story. You know, it's my understanding that one of the local TV personalities has asked him, you know, why won't you listen to the other side of the story?
I'm trying to think of why don't you call him and say, Governor, I'd like to sit down with you?
We offered to meet with him
Why doesn't he
twice,
call us?
and he's ignored us both times.
You've offered twice to meet
Yes.
with him. Because he was even critical of Barbara Walters last week. I'm sure you saw that.
I didn't see his remarks, no, but I heard that.
Well, living with this, Patsy, you know the truth. Well, you don't know who did it.
I don't know.
But you know the truth. You know you didn't.
I did not.
And you know you didn't.
That's the one thing we know with absolute certainty. It's a fact in this case, is that we did not kill our daughter.
And there was someone in our home that night who did kill our daughter. And we're going to find that person.
What are you doing to find them? You had a ransom for a while, right? I mean, you had an offer.
And we still do have a reward for information that's still standing, $100,000. We have active investigation that's been going on.
Your own?
Our own.
Are you still in business?
No.
Retired or?
Yes, not intentionally or not by choice, but it's both been difficult to work, and we've got a terrible cloud hanging over us. And
How about funds?
Getting low, very low. This has taken virtually all of our savings in legal expenses and expenses involved with the investigation.
How's your boy done? How's he doing at school? Like, his kids kid him?
kids do not. He's got some wonderful friends. They kid him about things that boys kid each other about, but they don't kid about this. They protect him.
We'll be right back with more phone calls for the Ramseys on this edition of Larry King Live. Don't go away. They're with us again tomorrow night, too. Don't go away. We're back with the Ramseys. This is a picture of their daughter that you carry, right?
Yes.
This was pre-kindergarten, age 5. You carry that with you all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Look at it a lot?
I do.
You carry one? A couple things before we take another call. Some people ask why you didn't search the house right away, run through the whole house right away.
We thought we were dealing with a kidnapping. We really did.
So there's no sense in looking.
Didn't. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had, but we didn't.
In the book, you write about the suitcase in the open basement window, but the police say you never told them about it.
Oh, that's false. I told Linda Arndt that I found the window open and I found a suitcase under the window. They have photos of this in their crime scene photos.
Crystal Lake, Illinois. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead.
Oh, my question was, why didn't you check the whole house immediately instead of waiting till later when you were asked to check the house?
I just answered that. They thought there was a kidnapping, right?
Right.
Well, we thought we were dealing with a kidnapping. We had a ransom note. Her bed was empty. We just assumed that's what happened.
The police right away were getting the lines ready to be, tapped so that when the call came that we would be ready. And Linda Arndt was going over with John, the procedure for all of that and what would happen next. So,
The note said not to call 911, right? But you did anyway.
You had no choice. We couldn't have sat there. The note also said, I will call you tomorrow. We didn't know if tomorrow was that day or the next day. We couldn't have waited. We'd have gone mad.
Police also say digital enhancement indicates that Burke was awake and asking questions when you called 911.
Well, some police claim they think they hear that. We would challenge the police to release that tape.
Make it all public.
Let's make it public. We'd like to hear that tape. We've never heard it. That is not our recollection of what happened that morning.
And as you said earlier, you would make your lie detector public.
We would insist that it be made public. If we're going to do it, let's make it public.
make everything public. I said, you want to see an interview? Publish the interview that I had with Tom Haney. Let's talk about...
Who's he?
He's the detective, homicide detective from Denver that interrogated me for 3 days. The governor, I believe, said that Barbara Walters was too soft on us. I said, well, why don't you take a look at Tom Haney's interview and see how soft an interviewer is.
Was he accusatory throughout the interview?
Oh, absolutely. He was, and, rightfully so. He was trying to,
Well, the police don't have a vested interest here, do they, John? I mean, they sincerely believe you did it. You don't think it's a concoction?
Oh, no. I don't think there's a conspiracy. I think it's based on inexperience, gross inexperience. These people have no homicide experience. Their leadership had no experience in this. They concluded very quickly that it must have been the parents because the parents always do it. And that became their theory. And they spent 3 years investigating us to try to prove that theory. That conclusion was reached before any of the evidence was even looked at.
But
we know that for a fact.
Okay. That is okay. Let bygones be bygones. But let's finish the investigation. We need experienced homicide investigators to start again. We will be totally cooperative. Everyone will start again. Start with canvassing of the neighborhood. Look at all the tests again. Go back and do more DNA testing. Start again. We've got to find this person.
Are you religious?
Yes, very much so.
Absolutely. If we didn't have our faith in God and the Lord knowing what the big picture is, we wouldn't be able to be here
Thing like
standing
this
walking.
doesn't cause you to doubt that?
When my daughter Beth was killed, it caused me to doubt it. The first words out of my mouth was, there can't be any God. How could he let this beautiful 22-year-old child who had so much to give die? And I did a lot of thinking, and I was better prepared, I think, spiritually when John Bonet was killed.
Really?
Yes.
Because of that growth in faith?
Yes.
Because one would have think someone that age, that brutally, the question would have been asked doubly.
We have to know and believe in our faith that we will see Jean Bonet again. She is in heaven with our Heavenly Father, and one of these days, John and me, we will be there. We will be there with her, and we live for that day. That's what keeps us going.
What it causes you to do, Larry, is to think, what in the world is the purpose of life? Life's tough.
It's real.
I think the purpose in life is to prepare us for eternity.
We'll be back with our remaining moments with the Ramseys for tonight. They'll be back tomorrow night for a full hour with more phone calls, and Greta Van Susteren will be with us as well. This is Larry King Live. Don't go away. I wanted to show you this picture again, which John carries with him. This was about a year and 2 months before she was murdered. John Bonet at age 5 in pre-K, pre-kindergarten, right? Why did she do the pageants?
She loved it.
She liked it herself? She would see?
She loved
was an
it.
entertainer.
She was an entertainer.
She was
I
a
think you said
performer.
that one.
She wanted to,
She loved to entertain.
and you encouraged it.
Absolutely.
Were you a stage mother, honestly?
Probably.
Yeah, in other words,
What's wrong with that?
I mean, you went with her to all the pageants, and
Oh, yeah, we had a ball. Had a great time.
did you go, too?
I used to go to the talent piece. Each one of these little pageants had a talent competition, and I used to tell John Bonet, that's the most important thing, is your talent. And she used to tell me, Dad, I really worked hard on my talent this time. And she always won. She was a very talented little girl. So I always went to see her talent performance.
Do you often carry the sight in your mind of her the last time you saw her?
I do, and it for a long time was burned in my mind, and it was a horrible memory. And I tried to replace it with how I knew John Bonet when she was alive, and that's why I carry her picture. That's why and it's slowly fading, but it's still there.
You are an internalizer, right? So that we don't see you weep on camera, and you don't...
Grief is a private thing. I weep. I've wept a lot for both my children that have died. I still do from time to time, but it's private.
You're more emotional?
I'm emotional. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, and I think of Jean Bonet, and I think that someone was in my home in the middle of the night. Why didn't I hear something? Who did this? How could this have happened in my home? That's the hard times.
Have there been any other murders in Colorado of children? Any others?
There was a murder almost a year to the day later in Boulder of a young 22-year-old co-ed, Colorado co-ed.
Sexual involved in that?
I don't
know.
Don't know.
Bludgeoned in the head, petite blonde.
Is it connected? I don't know. Highly questionable.
Do you look at people funny? I mean, do you...
I look at every person.
Suspicious of...
I look
Do
at
you?
every person and wonder if, particularly when I'm in Colorado. When we went back to Colorado, Burke finished up his 4th grade year, I would just, walk down the sidewalk or be driving along and look at every single person and wonder.
You worry about Burke at all? Going to school? He went back to school, right?
Yeah.
To worry about him?
But we had safety precautions. I would not let him go back to school in Colorado without safety precautions.
So you had people
We had a
watching him.
911 system put in the school. We had professional security on staff on the premises, and we had parents who were watching around the clock.
By the way, you say you never saw the FBI that day. Did they eventually get involved? Were they
No.
eventually... Never got
I don't
there?
think they were ever allowed to be involved, which was horribly frustrating.
Kidnapping, aren't they the first ones? you
I would
call?
have. I wish I'd have called them first.
Now look at the experts involved. They've been on this show: Dr. Henry Lee, Barry Scheck, the FBI Child Abduction Serial Killers Unit, labs of the FBI, CBI, Cellmark Diagnostics. You would think we'd come to something already, wouldn't you?
You would.
That's frustrating to all the people.
Absolutely.
We've been,
It's frustrating to
everyone.
the police. It's frustrating to us. It's frustrating to the public. The public needs an answer to this. They cannot bear to think that there's this kind of a monster that's still loose. I think that's one of the reasons there's a rush to judgment. They wanted an answer to this. This is a horrible thing.
the law and order starts and there's a verdict in an hour.
Right,
That's
exactly.
right. It's 6 o'clock news.
Yeah, we want that.
We want
Yeah.
that desperately.
See you tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
This is the first.
Thank you.
We'll
Larry.
be here.
The Ramseys will be back tomorrow night. Their book is The Death of Innocence. Greta Van Susteren, who is a lawyer as well as a program host on Burden of Proof, will sit by me, and we'll both pop questions, and of course we'll take a lot of your phone calls, and we'll show you some interesting graphic shots that we've taken as well. The Ramseys will be back tomorrow night. CNN Newsstand is next, and Friday night, by the way, Walter Cronkite, Catherine Graham will be with us as we look at veteran journalists talking about the world of news and how it's gathered, talking about a story like the Ramseys. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back with our guests again tomorrow night. From CNN in Washington, I'm Larry King. Good night.